So I'm going to be going over the functionality of the Rings library management software. When you first start the application, it looks something like this. We won't have any content available, but the first thing you should do is choose an audio library. You can go ahead and do that using this button here. I actually have a folder with a bunch of samples already in it. If you're starting from scratch, whatever, no problem. You can just select an empty folder where you want, new samples to be located on your hard drive. Then anytime you import something, it's going to go to that location. This is kind of the central place for all of your samples. But if you have samples there already, then that's ideal. You can go ahead and open it. It'll take some time to scan the contents of the library. So, this can take a while, depending on your machine and how many samples and stuff. So, be patient there. But once it's done, you don't have to go through that again, and most of the rest of the operations in the application will be pretty performant. You can see that I now have a tree here. It has all of my samples, and say I take one of these, I can see a kind of 3D visualization of the spectrum distribution for that sample. Also get some similar samples down here, in case you are interested in those. I can always play those as well. And then you just use the space bar to play. There's also a play button. This player is available, no matter where you are in the application. So once you've loaded your sample library, you can go ahead and start categorizing and organizing it, which is like kind of main purpose of this application, is to keep your library organized and generate ideas from the samples that you have. So say over here is all my main categories. I can go ahead and add one. Let's say that I just care about kick drums. Every category you create is actually assigned to one of these 6 channels. So these are kind of like a super category that overarching all of the categories that you set up. And this is just helpful in terms of generating pattern ideas, which you'll see later. It's useful to kind of generally try and put your categories into one of these 6 channels. In the case of kick drums, there's actually a channel just dedicated specifically to that. You can say whether or not it's melodic. You want to actually have the pitch adjusted when pattern ideas are generated. And then this density indicator will, control how dense this is when pattern ideas are generated. You also have a minimum and maximum note. So say I never want kick drums to be more frequent than a quarter note. It's a really useful constraint. You don't want to have like 30-second note kicks, obviously, or I don't know, maybe. And then each of the categories has some number of category sources, which are basically either filters on your library or stems. You can import stems from outside your library, and they'll be broken up into little pieces, whatever size you want, and then you can use those. But mostly you'll be using a filter. And there's actually like a quick way to create a filter. Like if I right click on one of these over here and say like, okay, kick punchy dd.wave, do I want to add that to my new kick category? Or maybe kick star, I want to add everything that starts with kick to my newly created category. Or maybe I want to add everything that ends with dd.wave. So these are just some convenient shortcuts for starting to organize. So if I go ahead and select this, you'll now go ahead and see I have file name starts with kick as one of my sources. And if I click on this and change to the source tab, I can see like, look, here's everything that starts with kick. I'm going to go ahead and play these, very convenient. I don't have to go manually include all of them. You can see the similar ones are mostly like bass drums from other places. Even though they don't start with kick, it kind of recognizes that these are sonically similar. Anyway, a convenient way to kick this progress off is to just select this hide already categorized checkbox, and then you can just kind of look at just the things that you haven't yet organized into one of these categories. So say maybe I want to add like a new category over here, like for claps or something like that. I'll put that on the drums channel. And maybe I want the minimum note to be like an 8th note for claps. Maybe I want claps to be denser, more claps in my arrangements. And then I can go ahead and click on this and say, okay, now I want everything that starts with clap to be put into claps. And then those will disappear because I have the hide already categorized thing selected. And if I go to my category sources, I'll see file name starts with clap. And, here are all my claps. And then you can see a lot of different filter settings over here. You can filter by file name or file path, and you can do exactly matches, starts with, ends with, contains case insensitive, matches case insensitive. So a lot of different ways to find material in your sample library. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward through adding a whole bunch of categories here so we can get to the generation support. But one more thing before I do that, anytime you have something selected in this view, there's a little export button, allows you to export it somewhere else. It'll bring up a file dialog for you to do that, or a drag to export. And this is really convenient if you have like another app over here. I can just go drag to export, and then I can go ahead and put that here. Now I have this clap in my arrangement over here. And that applies to anything that's in the player. So wherever I am, if I'm could select this tom, I think it's pretty cool. I can just drag that and put it right into my arrangement. So wherever I'm working, I have a quick ability to drag the material directly from my library manager into whatever app I want. But anyway, let's create some more categories, and then we'll take a look at the generation strategies. I've loaded a whole bunch of different categories that you can see in the top left. I have, different types of drums, leads, whatever. Here's like a whole bunch of bongos. I've organized this perks category that has like a bunch of different sources. Starts with Cuba, starts with perks, claves, wood block, bring all of these things in from my library. Remember, after you make progress like this, it's always important to hit the save button down here. That'll actually save your categories and everything else. So now that we have this, we can move on to generation. This is where I can get pattern ideas. And the first thing I want to do is kind of configure my arrangement, right? So I have 120 BPM set. That's the default. That's D minor for the key. I want chord progression to have 8 measures with chord changes no more frequently than every half measure. And then I want the sections of the chord progression to have a subset from the scale of D minor that is 5 notes. And now I can generate a bunch of ideas. If I just generate drums, a lot of the chord progression stuff may not matter. I can control how many I generate here. Like say I want to generate 4 of these. Have a lot of settings here in terms of how many layers and kind of pattern complexity along different dimensions. For drums, this stuff you don't have to worry about. Chord and sequence are essentially the same because there's not any notion of arpeggiation in a non-melodic context. But I can control whether there's effects or reverb, right? And so say I generate 4 of these. This will run for a little while, and then I'll end up with some material that I can potentially use. So say, here we go. So say I like that one. I can just go ahead and drag to export. I can bring that into my arrangement that I'm working on over here. Let me get rid of these other two. Maybe this might be better if I put a kick in there. So if I just go back and, go to my kicks, I can say good kick, punchy, whatever. This might be a good one. And just go drag to export this and put a few of those in. Oops. Yeah, maybe I'll just loop it. Oh, wait. Anyway, you get the idea. So furthermore, in the Generate tab, it gets really exciting if you start generating, other more complicated things. Let's try and generate a baseline. I can go ahead and choose between sequence or chord. For baselines, it's ideal to use sequence. That's going to, arrange things in arpeggiated fashion rather than layered on top of one another. I'll have effects and reverb both enabled and make sure to have the melodic box checked so it actually does change the pitch of my material. And this is all going to draw from categories labeled with bass. And of course, I only have one. You can see that it's got a few things that I've brought in from my library, different filter sources. But let's go ahead and generate some of these and see what they're like. One other thing to note is there's a duration field here. This is actually in measures, so this will be like 8 measures, and since we're at 120 BPM for 4x4, you can see that we end up with 16 seconds of actual audio. So let's see about these. This one looks blank. I think maybe the first one's pretty good. So let's say I want to bring this into my arrangement. We'll go ahead and drag to export. We'll put this on a new layer. Let's go ahead and loop these. Get rid of the kicks for now. I think this is... Anyway, so, on and on, you can kind of build your material one layer at a time. Same thing for harmony, leads, and atmospheres. So once you've kind of gotten familiar with the generation process, you've made some choices here in terms of generating individual channels, you can actually have the tool create an entire arrangement for you, basically. And so if you go to the Arrange tab, you'll see the UI kind of changes to show a structure. It has multiple sections. It's kind of a default one that's put in there for you, but you can alter this however you want, remove or add sections. And basically what all this is going to do is kind of take the pattern generation from the Generate tab and kind of do it repeatedly for different channels and different sections to produce an entire arrangement. It'd also apply effects with an automation pattern that is respective of these breaks. And you can see, so at 40, there's a kind of drop there, and at 80 measures, there's kind of a drop there. So you can see that overall automation trend is kind of layered on the top. So if I were to add a new break at position like 96 or something like that, then we'd see, okay, now there's a new one inserted there, and then whatever, I can, maybe I'll remove this break. Okay, so now it's going all the way to 96 or whatever, and that's the overall structure. And I could do the same thing with sections, add or remove sections as needed. Those are kind of color coded here. So now, assuming this is the basic arrangement that I want, um, this process takes a little longer, and so there's a separate process for it. You go to the populate and run section. I could just go ahead and add some number of um, hypothetical arrangements. Let's say I want 25. I'll add them to the population. Now, there's audio pending for these. We actually haven't rendered them yet. We don't know what they're going to be like. And now I'll do an optimization process. It's an algorithmic process that's going to improve upon these with some number of cycles, between 1 and 5. You can do more cycles sequentially too, like you run a couple cycles of optimization and then maybe like remove ones you don't like and then run more cycles of optimization and so on and so on. Yeah, that's basically how this works. You just run one cycle and it'll begin the optimization process. This takes a little while, so we'll come back in a minute and check in on how it's going. So this has been running for a little while, and we can go ahead and take a look at some of the outputs. You can see the duration, and then it has kind of a score of whether these made it to a certain level of optimization in the process. So just take a look at the first one. Here we go. We got quite a bit here. And you can see it's kind of respecting the, structure here at the top, right? It's going to kind of drop back in as soon as it reaches that place. There's quite a bit of silence there. I'm not sure, this is maybe not ideal, but so let's take a look at some of the others. So yeah, they're quite busy. Anyway, a cool thing about this is that you can actually drag just the stems of this. So like say maybe I just like the harmony, there's like a drag to export that, right? And I can take just the harmony part of that entire thing. And now I have, like, let me mute these. I have that harmony. And so maybe I want to take all of them, like I take the drums also. And the bass, right? But who knows? Maybe I like the harmony, the lead of this one or something like that, right? So I could take the lead here and put that in, whatever. And now, let me get the kicks from here. And so you can imagine like doing some kind of mastering process to make this into something that's actually usable. Maybe I only want like this one section as like a build-up part or something like that, So anyway, that's the idea. That's how it works, and I can't wait to hear what you find to make it do.